Well, Raw Onion listeners, we are back, and happy May. We are recording on May 4th, and you know what that means. We are now in a new season. Spring has sprung, and so has our new theme. May is now where we're going to spend the next few weeks talking about a very, very big and very important topic, something that all of us can absolutely identify with, and something that is required of all of us more and more these days, and it is the topic of resilience. And before I go into what resilience is, and before I introduce our incredible guest who will start this month's series off, I wanted to really do a little bit of a core actualization on what resilience truly is. And so, resilience is not about being tough, all right? It's not about pushing through or enduring everything. And whoever is thinking that or has thought that, I'm going to challenge you, because at its core, resilience is your ability to experience stress, emotion, uncertainty, and return to yourself without losing your capacity to think, choose, and act. So from a neuroscience perspective, resilience is really the ability to regulate your nervous system so that your amygdala, and that's something we talk about all the time, your threat detection center of the brain, doesn't completely take over. Because when that higher system is online, that prefrontal cortex, that decision-making part of your brain, no matter what, you can still think clearly, make aligned decisions, stay connected to who you are. So resilience isn't really about not feeling fear. It's about not being run by it. Resilience isn't a personality trait, it is a biological process. Every time we face uncertainty, rejection, or guilt, our brain is literally deciding, am I safe? Or am I under threat? And here's the catch. Our brains are wired to treat social risk like disappointing our family or stepping outside our cultural norms the same way they treat physical danger. So when women especially choose ambition, creativity, or independence, we're not just making a life decision, we're overriding ancient neural circuits designed to keep us accepted and safe. Remember, there is no judgment here. There is only the search for safety. That is how we as humans are designed. So resilience is a neurological override. That's the real question. How do you build a life that feels expansive when your brain is constantly trying to keep you under that old definition of safe? So when we talk about resilience today, I don't want to just talk about pushing through. I want to talk about what it actually feels like in the body, in your environment, in your capacity, especially when you're navigating culture, family, identity, environmental pressures, societal pressures, those expectations, and building something new of your own. And that is where our topics are going to land. And I could not think of a more esteemed guest that I would rather share this space with than my guest today, Sarosh Iqbal. She is the founder of Prezio, and she will go into all of what that is. And I'm very excited to share this with everyone. She transitioned from a career in Silicon Valley into building a brand rooted in personalization and meaning. Her journey has been all about resilience, navigating uncertainty, redefining success, and trusting herself through the process. So, Sarosh, welcome. Yoshie, Barnett, and we welcome you wholeheartedly to the Raw Onion. And, before we get into it, I am really curious, where did this name come from? I'm very intrigued by the name of your company, Prezio. And hello and welcome, by the way.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, Yoshie. I do not have enough words to really appreciate all the, admirable words that you use for me and, bringing me to this platform. Prezio. As much as I would love to, just talk about this word and my story and this topic of what we picked for the month of May, I would like to really nail down the meaning of this word, which is called present. It has derived from a word present. And when we use this word, it actually has multiple meanings. It started from your present. If you keep dwelling in your past and, just keep thinking about and, stay focused on your past, you would not be able to live in your present. So you have to be resilient enough to really live your present, live it fully. So that's one. And it's not about you. Your life is not about you. There are so many people that you surrounded or they've surrounded you. And it really does matter what you people make feel, how do you make people feel by being present for them. That's another derivation of present. And of course, the present itself, giving them someone a nice present, giving them a gift, and make them feel that you're valued, you are appreciated, you are seen, you are, something that they support you. So there are so many words, there are so many meanings to present. And when I was thinking of what I would name my new website that I pivoted from my older version of it, which is the vision is the same, is just like the bigger and better scope of it. I want to go all big into it. So that's why I came from, Misha's accessories to the world called Prezio. Thank you.
Well, thank you, because, this is what I'm very fascinated with, because you have and I don't want to say past life, but for all intents and purposes, your former career was in Silicon Valley, high pressure, high power, high performance, very, very top tier in terms of expectation, and really the core of what we would define as the corporate structure, right?
Absolutely.
And what I'm thinking, this is such a beautiful pivot, and something I really am excited to talk to you about today with this concept of the corporate world, why you transitioned out of it so gracefully, but also the choosing of this new path is, and for everyone else, we're obviously going to drop all of your information at the end of this program, but it's really a beautiful sort of transition to say, okay, I'm going from a really high pressure corporate world into a way I can actually give back to the corporate world in a really beautiful individual way of now I'm the one that is creating presents and gifts to that corporate space. And not only that, I know you do TED Talk gifts, you do a whole array of different kind of designs, but it's really, you're still operating in the same world, but now you've carved your own niche.
That's right.
In that world. And that I find truly to be the epitome of what the word resilience means. Can you take us into this journey, into your job that was and your job that is today, and how those light bulbs went off in your mind, that knowledge of, okay, ding, 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 I know something's got to change, and this is what I'm going to change it to?
Sure, absolutely. I want to start with just a little small disclaimer that, because I know we probably would have talked about it all day and then my stories would never finish, but I want to really, just, crush it down to a small, meaningful story. Of course, that's a story of my lifetime. So we cannot comprehend this within 30 or 60 minutes, the story of 30 years.
Right.
You maybe guess my age from that. It started from, I belong to a South Asian culture, right? Our family is heavily rooted into predefined success. And, it starts from the day the child is born, a boy or a girl irrespective. Now that we are out of that era, that girls are raised up in a different way than the boys, we were lucky enough to actually raise it in a family that they both have given the similar opportunities in terms of education, lifestyle, the platform that you can navigate to. However, I'm still going to say it was still controlled by heavily controlled and under the impression of there are preset parameters for a child to follow through. Okay. And we are so tuned to not really think outside of that predefined line or success or whatever you want to call it, right? So it starts from your early childhood education. Of course, every parent tried their best to give their children the best education as they could, but you have been told you need to get good grades. Every grade that you are in, you need to really compete, with the top tiers of your class come first and second and this and that. So you could do early childhood education, laid a good foundation so that you can go to a good high school, and then you can, transition to a good college and then good university, get good degrees, defines the system of being successful. And eventually you get a good job in a corporate world and you can define yourself that, oh my God, I am so successful. There is nothing better that, I could have had. So, and for so many people, I think they're happy with it. I mean, there is nothing wrong about it, but there are some people like me, like yourself, who are not really content by what they have achieved so far. And when I'm saying this, please keep in mind to all the listeners that I'm not complaining of the system that we've got. Okay, there is no complaint. I'm really grateful. I've always been grateful to my parents who had given me the best of opportunities that they never had. However, as a person, as just something in my mind, I'm always stuck in, well, is that it? Like, is that all we define ourselves with? There has to be more. So let's explore what's more, okay? And it's different with different ages. I'm not saying that when I was like 15 years old, I had a vision of, okay, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. But at that time, when I was 15 years old or when I was in college, the projects that our friends were doing when we were in a school, they were getting all the ideas to do the projects. And I always like, okay, there has to be something other than they are all looking into the same domain. So why not I just go down and hunt for a different sort of project? So I've always kind of a person who look into different perspectives, something that we could do differently. And it has nothing to do with showing someone that you're low. I just like, it has been in my personality. And actually, I think that led me a long way to where I have, where I am now. Long story short, I got, my good education, my engineering degree, and lucky enough that I got married in a household who actually live in the United States. So I'm originally from Pakistan, and I got in a very well-renowned engineering university. It's a very famous university, and then I got an engineering degree. And supposedly, when I got married, my in-laws lives in the Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley as it is, and such a heavy tech-based place, I got another predefined goal from the family that, okay, now that you've done your engineering degree, why don't you look something so that you can fit in nicely in the Silicon Valley? You know what I mean? It's just as easy as it says. And I'm like, all right, well, let's see what can I do to fit myself in to Silicon Valley? And that's another step, in successful wife and successful, person in the tech world in the United States, in the corporate world, I would say. So I started looking into this and, lo and behold, I got myself into, certifications and what have you. Came here, started a journey as a successful, a corporate worker and a wife, and now is starting a new family. It's a whole new journey. And those who are listening to me, I mean, we are told to just keep following the path, and, we never look back and never really enjoyed the time that we were given. It's always like, look for something new and just strive for it. You don't want to enjoy the time that you have been given and actually soak it in. Because the life that you have before you get married, you're never going to get it back. And I'm not complaining, but what I'm saying is young folks out there who are listening to me, if you are not married, if you are not committed, if you are still living with your parents, live with your parents, enjoy the moment with your friends, enjoy the life, because once you're out of it, you are never getting back. Okay. So, I know that, kids these days, folk these days, they're like eager to just get out of the household and live the independent life. It's no fun. Okay. It's no fun. I will get back to, maybe I can, tangle back some of my old life experiences when we will be, talking on resilience. But long story short, I came here. And then I have been working in corporate world for, I would say, more than a decade, leading with a family, had 3 kids in 10 years and what have you, and that there is a time in everyone's life where I would call it like, blessing in disguise, or hit by an era which we call COVID, and COVID just, shuts the world down. Everyone was in their own cage and in a bubble, and we call it the lockdown period. And I had been thinking, I'm like, it's just like, this feels very lonely, even though I used to live in a joint family and, I have my in-laws very close by, but still the friends and the social circle that we used to all navigate to. We were like kind of in a lockdown. And I'm like, how can we, what can we do to make them feel that we feel for them? We miss them. We love them. There has to be a way other than the phone, and there has to be something that they can feel. Tangible thing that they can think and feel like, oh my God, she made it for me. She was really thinking when she was making it for me. So, and just a quick reminder that I've always been a very creative person. I was very artistic. We used to create like these, artwork in the school and this and that. When I was a child, that was my, I would say, me time to really just, get outside of the world and really enjoy that moment. I'm a very artistic person. So I started during COVID, I started making like something really personalized, a gift or something like, simple, tiny, but tangible that I can send it to my friends and family here in the United States or even outside to make them feel that we miss you. We love you. We value you, your presence. Now that we don't have it, we want to value that. How cool is that? So, and they loved it. And they were like, since you make it like super nice and cute, can you make this one for me so I can send it to my friend? So this is how, this whole ball started. And I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Like people value what I made and they were willing to pay me. However, since they were friends and family, I did not initiate that, but something in my mind just, that light bulb just light up. That, wait a second, I have the potential. I mean, I've always knew that I have a potential, but I never got a chance to really think outside the box ever until, the time when I got married, because you were just so consumed in just creating the family, which itself is so beautiful. It's another beautiful time phase of your life, but it's never enough for me. I mean, unfortunately. So
that's spoken like a true entrepreneur,
yeah,
my
right?
friend.
So then I was like, okay, how can I make this into a system? Now that I've created this and people are willing to pay me, how can I make this to show more people? So I created this e-commerce shop called Etsy. I created this store. And then I intentionally then created quite a few products and tried to just push it out to the world. And, whatever comes along with creating a business, creating my online page, social media presence, and what have you, I did all that. We are so blessed to have all these resources to really look into what works for you and what not. So I really put down the system. And mind you, I am doing it while I have kids under 7. Okay. I have kids under 7 and I have 3 kids, like I would say 7, 2, or a newborn or something like that. My kids are really like, very close to each other, 14 months apart, the younger 2. And something inside me saying that, why don't you just do it? Okay. While I was working full time, taking care of my 1 toddler, 1 newborn, and 1 preschooler, and, getting another thing under my belt, which is starting a whole new thing, which is called an entrepreneurship. That's where I would say the true period or a phase of being resilient started. Okay. Because at the very beginning, when we are doing things differently than what that was predefined, we got hit by rejection. We got hit by comments like, why are you doing that? What do you need it? Do you need money? Why are you being so difficult on yourself? You're not giving enough time to your kids. You're being, a mean mother. You don't have time for your kids. If you have this much time to work on your shop or your social media, you're spending so much time scrolling and getting the ideas. You might have given this time to your kids so that they become more of your time and this and that. And I cannot tell you, like, as much as I have a very thick skin, but sometimes really there are some comments, there are some feedback that really hits you, especially when it's coming from your family member, especially when it comes to from someone who you value. So that's where I think the true definition of being resilient started. You really have to sit down and understand what they actually say, and what they say is actually they mean it. And even if they mean it, is it true? What they're saying is true, you have to process that within you. And there is no one that you have to really justify that what you're saying is true or not, what I do, what you see. I mean, so many things that you're doing for yourself and for your family, people are outside, they are not seeing it. So there is no reason to justify what you are doing and how much you are doing it. So that's where my first baby as a business started from. And I named it after my creative daughter. Her name is Nisha, and she is super creative. At the age of like 2, 3, she painted a butterfly I would have never imagined. And she's born with that art. And I named my business Misha's Accessories. It has this old story and, how I pulled it off together, started working on it for like 3 years, 4 years before I pivoted from it and really took this small concept of creating custom and personalized gifts for consumers and bring it to the big level, which is a corporate. Because as much as we love to being in corporate, I can only tell you that there is so much you are doing without being appreciated. There's so much as a person, irrespective of what your gender is, a male or female, you're just putting so much of your time during the entire day from 9 to 5, and you are just being appreciated by just the paycheck at the end of 2 weeks. Is this all defining your worth? I don't think so. I think we as a corporate people, they have to be appreciated more of how much the effort and the time everyone is putting into your company. So something at the end of the year, we got these boring swags and boring corporate gifts. We leave it on the table. So much of my time, so many of them, they're all laid on my table. If anyone wants to pick it up, more than welcome to just go grab it, because they mean nothing to me, because whatever that was, I'm not saying that they gave us boring product, but it was it never connected to me. So for me, when I took this Misha's Accessories from consumer level to corporate, I really want to make people feel valued. Thank you. Whatever project that they work on, something they accomplished within that year. And it takes time. Let's be honest. Something that you want to put some value and some effort to, it takes time. So how about we make people feel that we value your presence, we value your hard work. Thank you so much for all that you did when you are present in the company. That's why I built Prezio. And it's all about making people feel seen, feel valued, feel appreciated, feel present. So that is, I can't shorten it down any shorter than that.
No. And the thing is, listen, everything you're saying here, I'm glad you're sharing this with us, because this is very rich. And I tell you why. This hits on so many different levels, because you're speaking truths on not only a cultural norm, how people have been raised, and whether it is Pakistani, whether it is, and I come from a Middle Eastern background, we cross a lot of different, very similar cultural norms and backgrounds in that respect. But in every culture, there are expectations.
Absolutely.
And mixing that, and I like how you framed that too, with this idea of, and you're right, it is the truth. There is no negativity associated with it, but there is this epiphany that comes with, all right, I honor what this is, but guess what? I think I could do even more with it. And a lot of how culture is defined, and this is sort of going back into our neuroscience element, is safety. That when we understand and we really have a moment to honor where we came from, there were reasons why norms were put into place to keep us alive, for safety, for familial safety, and to ensure that we don't go too far out of this sort of box, because what's going to happen outside the box, we don't know. And we can't ensure your safety if you venture off into a different path.
That is true. Yeah.
Understanding that there's no animosity there. It's the opposite. It's, as to your point, their opportunity that was provided to you, there is nothing but good intention behind that. But we also have to say, wait, where am I today? I'm in a different environment that allows me to explore and push that boundary a bit more. And that is what I think is so beautiful about how you described the birth of your company, because it is such a lovely alchemy between honoring where you came from and also honoring the work life in terms of where you came from, and saying, wait a minute, recognizing, and I couldn't agree with you more, recognizing the fact that corporate is, all intents and purposes, quite a robotic environment. And again, there are reasons behind it. There are structures that have to be guaranteed as much as possible, outcomes that have to be forecasted. We get it. But that doesn't leave a whole lot of room for that creativity of the individual. All right? Okay, fine. And when you realize maybe that's not so much for you anymore, Another beautiful reframe is taking this really traumatic experience that the whole world went through with COVID era lockdown and really repositioning yourself to say, okay, this is the reality. This is pretty harsh. Let me look to make this a positive, at least in my own bubble at that time. Right?
Absolutely.
What a beautiful thing that you really figured out where the opportunity was and to be able to touch people figuratively when you weren't able to do it literally.
Yep.
So, I mean, there are so many incredible points that you're making here. I'm so glad that you broke this down for us. And, one thing that I am really interested in, and this is something that I think many people can relate to, this concept. And again, please, listeners and everyone listening, I'm explaining this now in a very nuanced way, because when we build something, whether we are corporate employees, whether we are parents, whether we are entrepreneurs, founders, operators, we deal with two different emotions that ride side by side. And one of them is guilt. And that is something that you had mentioned without naming it. But in terms of Sarosh, you could be spending more time with the kids. You could be doing this. You could be doing that. And a concept of shame and this whole idea of shame. And now these sound similar, but I'm going to break it down before I ask you this question. Guilt and shame are very different, folks. Guilt is this idea of, I did something wrong. It's behavior-based, and it can actually motivate change if you line it up in your brain in a healthy way, which you did. Shame, on the other hand, equates to this definition of I am wrong. It's identity-based with this paralyzing outcome. And how does shame get triggered in the first place? Well, this is really what I'd like to open up to with the conversation. Again, we're not painting it in a negative way. This is built deep, deep down in our lineage, respective to anyone, again, for safety. But let's break it down because it actually does end up hindering us if we lean into it too far. So shame is not random. It's learned, it's encoded, and it's socially reinforced. So it almost begins with this idea of approval feeling conditional. Mistakes are made with criticism instead of curiosity. And again, this is to ensure the perception of safety, right? There's no blame associated with this. We're just explaining what it is. So the brain wires this as belonging equals being a certain way. Because we've been doing this for millennia. This is the way it's done. It's always been. So later in life, anything that threatens belonging triggers shame. So in collectivist cultures, and why not use South Asian, Middle Eastern right now? But again, this is, I would venture to say, cultures globally can pinpoint this. There is no one culture. It really is linked to identity that's tied to family reputation, gender roles, community perception, and so the stakes are higher. It's not just, did I make the wrong choice? It becomes, what does my choice say about my family? Am I betraying something bigger than me? That's why stepping outside of norms with transitioning into career, into independence, creativity can feel disproportionately heavy. You're not just risking failure, you're risking disconnection. And so when we talk about this in terms of the shame and guilt loops and really re-alchemizing it as you did, Sarosh, because you did it in a very elegant way. To say, wait a minute, I hear you, I see you, and I'm going to really mindfully and respectfully build something out of this. And that is exactly what you're doing. So again, I'm fascinated and I'm so in deep gratitude for your sharing today, because I want to know, what did your nervous system do during these transitions or can you recall when you were getting that sort of those notes, so to speak, and saying, well, guess what? I think my calling is that I push through that light criticism or maybe more concern in a loving way and say, I'm going to do this anyway. How was that? How did that feel in your body? And can you identify with this sort of seesaw of the guilt and shame?
Absolutely, Stephanie. And, I think there is no short answer to it. And it's not a button or, just a trigger that you turn it on and turn it off or just built into within you. I think it has to do something that you build on and take it slow. Okay. I think the first thing and the really something that we have to understand that you have to acknowledge and you have to know that you have to name it to regulate it. So that's the first thing that you have to understand. If you don't even know what you are dealing with, you won't be able to understand. And of course, you won't be able to regulate it. You won't be able to fix it. So that's the
Listeners,
first thing
this
you
is a
have to
big deal.
understand.
Yeah,
You have to name it to regulate
that's
it.
huge, Sarosh.
Now, what do you name it? Do you name it opportunity? Do you name it blaming? Do you name it a guilt? Is it a shame? Is it stress? Is it fear? Is it rejection? There are so many
Right.
things that potentially lead to one thing, your mind. Okay, it's all a mind game. From the very young age, from a very young age, I've always been someone who get this feedback that you don't listen. You're so stubborn. You just do what you want to do. And I've always dealt with a big smile. I'm like, yeah, thank you. And that's it. I don't have to justify myself. Someone is pointing out a word stubborn to me or, and that started from a very young age. So I did not have any, something very important in that time, but it's just something that we were asked not to do. And again, we keep pointing because of our safety through our parents, our family members. They say, okay, these are the safe boundaries. So you don't want to go outside because there are uncertainties. So we cannot guarantee your safety or success outside the zone. So stay inside. And I'm always like, oh, let me peek out what's outside. And when I do that, I've always heard that,
right?
You're so stubborn. You do what you need to do. And why don't you listen? And I was like, I was just trying to explore to see what happens. And of course, I knew how to regulate myself. I know the boundaries and there is nothing bad of peeking outside the boundaries. Okay. And so that is where it is always, I think it's a personality that you kind of born with. However, it can either kill or it can either you flourish it and you practice it slowly and build on it. Build on that resilience that you are being given the day you're born. And I think everyone has it. You just have to regulate it. You just have to name that feeling and say how you can fix it to be able to move forward. That being said, through my entrepreneurship journey, like I said, I started it at the prime time when my kids really needed my time. I had a newborn, I had a toddler, and a preschooler. These are the ages where the world says they need their mother's time, and mother needs to just stick with their children and really just leave everything in the world and just to spend the entire lifetime with them, which is good. I mean, there is nothing wrong. That feeling is the best feeling in the world. However, that does not define me as a person. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a sister. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister-in-law. And what all the tangents that is just attached with me, all the relationships that I am in, I am Sarosh. Who is Sarosh? And what defines me? Does it define that I'm a good mother? That's it. That's my definition. I'm defined by a good vibe. Is that my definition? Or my definition is she is Sarosh. And that's enough for me to just name myself. And that's my identity. I don't want to be called he is, she is his mom. She is his wife. No, I am me. Okay. So when we are trying to push ourselves from these tags that I'm not defined by someone's wife or someone's mom. I am defined by myself. That comes down to so many tags that people call you shame. You get feeling shame that, or you feel guilty that you're not a good enough mom, or you're in that pressure or fear that what if people started hating me? All these emotions and things comes to in your mind. Again, you have to name it to regulate it. Okay. When you pointed out that there is a difference between guilt and shame, who defines it? Where is the boundary?
Fair question.
The boundary is where you define the boundary. If someone is saying that, oh my God, you're such a you're not a good enough mom. You're not giving enough time to your kids. And that's a shame. You should be given more time. And at the same time, you're like, you're thinking while you're going through all that postpartum, phase. That's another story. You can just build this entire podcast series just on postpartum. It's another phase which is so underrated, under-discussed, under-evaluated that the woman goes through. And no one, absolutely no one gives a damn about what is going on inside your body and your brain, because your body is just going through an entirely different phase, which gives you all these emotions that, is it wrong? Am I doing it right? My newborn and this and that. And the outside world is telling you on the top of it, you're not doing good enough. So that kills everything. So at that time, I just went through quite of course, millions of roller coaster emotions, but as hard and a hard skull or thick skin as I'd had, I was like, wait a second. I really have to really name it myself to be able to regulate it. Is it really true what they're saying? Or it's just that they have to say something. World has to say something about you. You either you ask them or not. They're just going to say something. So you think what you think is true and then you name it. Is it a fear? Is it shame? Is it stress or whatever it is? And then you regulate it and ask for help if you really need things. If you think that it's something that you need help for. So I think, and then that's just the foundation and you build on it. This is the core definition of naming it to regulate your emotion. It could be anything. And if you have this foundation, I believe you can go through any phase in your life, whatever that is. And I think you can just build onto it.
It's so profound what you're saying, because to name anything, that thing, that feeling, it becomes less scary, doesn't it? Because then it's not some huge entity that takes on a life of its own. If you say, yes, this is what this is, you can grow that perspective on how much control it's going to have over your life. If it is a fear, or if it is, to your point, and I couldn't agree more, that people are going to say what they're going to say. They have their own motivations. They have their own reasons. They have their own fears that they're trying to numb out or to kind of justify.
Absolutely.
Or like we were talking about the idea of cultural shaming. It's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's the perception of safety. Maybe, so you can't assume. But when you name something, it takes it out of yourself so you can look at it in front of you and say, okay, look, you're not as scary as I thought you were, that thing. And then you regulate around it. And I love how you're framing this because, even to take it back to our theme of today and of this month, resilience, this idea of bouncing back. It's not just pushing through when you're falling apart and just taking a plow through all of your emotions. It's being able to say, okay, here it is right in front of me. And beautiful hack that you're sharing, let me name it, and then let me kind of grow beyond it, and I can walk right past it. And that is that bounce back of what resilience is, redefining those things in life, and especially how beautiful and how empowering it is that you name the fact that you are Sarosh. And that comes with a multitude of different identities that you have honed and that you own over the course of your lifetime. It is not one thing.
Absolutely.
And it's a big deal. And, as we reframe and as we look to really figure out what that name means or what we are really looking at under the lens of guilt and shame and resilience, I'm going to ask to add another layer to this idea of rejection, because that lies really quietly beneath the surface of our motivation to why we do or don't do a lot of things. And especially as an entrepreneur, as a female entrepreneur, we don't want to get rejected. I mean, who wants to get rejected? I mean, even in relationships, who wants to be told no? Or no, I'm not into you. Or no, I don't want to date you anymore. Or no this, no that. Nobody. It feels horrible. And so, rejection, oddly enough, it activates the same brain regions as physical pain. And that tells you kind of all we need to know. Who wants to be in physical pain? But cognitively reframing that too changes the response. So, whether it's a family, a partner, a job, rejection is processed in the brain as pain. It activates regions tied to, and again, we have a theme here. Yeah. It goes back to threat and distress, especially in that part of the brain, that amygdala that we talk about all the time, the threat detection center. It can light up associated with social pain too. So when you're talking about resilience to shame or guilt and to avoid rejection, no wonder, because the same brain part lights up to social pain as it does to all those other emotions. So that's why rejection feels like it's immediate, it's almost physical, and your brain is still asking, am I safe? Do I belong? And rejection from family is actually, there's a little bit of a difference here. So rejection from family or work. Family rejection hits harder because it's tied to your early conditioning, that sense of belonging, that sense of unconscious, deeply encoded, this is what we do because, why? We stay safe this way.
Mm-hmm.
So when rejection comes from the family, the brain can interpret it as sort of, if I'm not accepted here, where do I belong? And that's terrifying. Who wants to feel like that? And even rejection at work, it's more situational, but it's still tied to performance or where you fit in. Talk about the corporate landscape. It's all about fitting in. You're a cog in the wheel, and there's a reason for it. We already said we're not shading anything. We're not shading the structure, but there's a reason, and it still hurts if you are rejected. So instead of this didn't work, maybe you're thinking, well, maybe I'm not accepted. And that said, if someone already ties their worth to achievement, work rejection quickly becomes identity level 2. So, rejection always lands in the body, but where it lives depends on what it touches. If it touches your identity, it becomes shame. But if it stays in context, it becomes information. And that's a lot of what I'm hearing you offer our listeners today, of this beautiful renaming, because then instead of this is a threat or maybe I am a threat, no, wait a minute, let me rename this, and then it's data instead of a threat. How do you feel about this? What can you tell me about your experience with this concept of rejection, or is there any sort of link to this?
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for putting this into such an amazing explanation. I may not be able to find these perfect words because when you're talking to, from your mind is just like, the words can become all over the place. But I would like to talk briefly about, again, all these topics are just so rich in text that we could just pick one and talk about it all day. But
I tell you,
since
maybe we
because
will
the
one
limit,
day.
time limitation, we can only try to give our perspective on how we look at things, and if they can help listeners, this is, I believe, the happy moments, and this is we are, I would say, I can't remember that word. We are successful in having this episode of on resilience. So when you mentioned about rejection, okay, this word is a fearful word. Again, it depends on like how you see it. How do you perceive this word? Okay, it can define you as a failure. It can define you as a point of information or a data that you can actually build on. So, but there are two aspects of it, and they both are actually very different from where you are getting this rejection from. Family, okay? Families has always been your safe point, people that you feel belong to. They are your safe people. You can talk anything or everything about them or with them. And if something goes wrong or something is off, and people who you want to spend time with or love to spend time with, they give you some sort of rejection. And I wouldn't say that they shut the door on you. They're like, maybe not agree with you on something. They're like, I don't agree what you're doing. So if you want to do this, go do it, but don't call me. I don't want to be the person to talk to you about this. I'm not happy about what you're doing. This is a rejection. This is something, it's not like rejection does not mean that someone will just take you out of their house. That's, the extreme form of it. But this is a part of rejection. Okay, if you want to do something, go do it, but don't come back to me. If you fail, don't come back to me. I am not going to be the one supporting you. This is really, just like core rejection that you're getting from your family, your friends, whoever you're trying to lean back to. And it hits you. I'm like, okay, so this is my turning point. Do I still go with what my instincts are telling me to do, or do I hold back? Because the people who love me, they're not happy with me. And if I take that route, there is no going back. So what do I do? And that is a core, and that's the epicenter of
Yes,
being
very much
resilient.
so.
Okay? And you run your numbers, you run your points, and you run your data, whatever you have within you. For me, I would say whenever I would say that I had these moments, I need to then run my numbers, run my data, and really do the pros and cons, and really think about through it that if I go this way, what are the pros and cons? If I don't go this way, what are the pros and cons? Can I push this window a little bit more? Can I live in this uncertainty for just a little bit more? Can I handle this pressure? And as much as I would love to go back, I would love to just take that different route. How can I make the best of both worlds. There is no hard answer. There is no one-liner answer to this. This is, I would say, the process for a very long time that you're just trying to make both ends meet. Okay. And I try to take rejection somewhat positive, that people who are trying to not letting me go, they love me. They're saying it because, like you said, they have their own reasons. They have their own entire lifetime of experience that they're saying something on the basis of a very valid reason. But the time that we live on, the time that we are going forward, it's not going to be the same. And it's moving, it's changing so fast that if we don't cope up with it, if we don't go along with it, we're going to be left behind sooner than we know it. So I have to make sure that I need to just be on my way to achieve what I'm trying to achieve while keeping them on board and not really cut ties with them. So there is this definition of stay and stretch your window a little bit longer and being resilient about it. Corporate, on the other hand, it's an entirely different ballgame. You don't belong with those people. You don't have any personal ties or, emotions of love and hate and all that. You just work there. You have good ties. You have acquaintances. You talk to them during your work day and daytime and what have you. And then when they're done, out of sight, out of mind, and I think, pretty much everyone here can relate to this. Corporate life is somewhat very artificial in a way that we get feedback from people, and not that we want to get feedback from them. It's just like the system is set up the way it's set up, right? This yearly feedback, or what do you call it?
The review,
the review, exactly. The review system. You have to self-review and tell people how good you are. Okay, it's laid down there for a reason, but that one sentence or one review, that does not define your worth. Okay. So, and there are quite a, different rejection from you get if you didn't get enough bonus or enough raise what you expected to be. You had a rejection. You were rejected of not getting enough raise or enough bonus that you were hoping for or meant for, or you felt like it. And then another thing is, like, if you are getting out of, so that's corporate. And if you are an entrepreneur, you are getting rejected, and God knows how terrifying it is to being rejected from the core customers that you want to work with. You pitch them something, and I can tell you it's just as easy as it says, like, it's okay, you can just keep on moving because, you opt for it, but it feels terrible. You work so hard for customers who think they're hot leads, and you are really excited to work for them or with them, and they come up and say, no, thank you. We will come back in future, or anything. They're just being nice, and there is nothing personal about it, but
it hurts though.
It hurts. And I think for me, from the day I left my corporate world and corporate job, and then I started my own business, and, on the basis of like what I had been doing, dealing with the consumer level, which are like, dealing with private events and this and that. Now that I'm on the bigger level, which is corporate, it's understood that I'm going to hit by a rejection. Not once, not twice, multiple times. And I think that is the time where you actually push your limits to either quit what you're doing or go through it. Okay. If you push your limits a little bit longer and actually survived in that rejection phase, then there is a whole lot of new world waiting for you. And I think that is the time where you really name it. Name it as, are you really a failure? Are you really incapable of doing it because the say XYZ person say that, no, thank you, we don't want it, or what you presented us is not good enough. So no, thanks. Am I not good enough? Should I quit what I had in my mind, because I'm certainly not good enough for them to provide what they're asking for. So I can just go back to, because of course I'm not capable of it. Or you name that as a data point. You think that, okay, so what they gave me the feedback, and on the basis of that feedback, how can I improve myself? How can I make it better next time? What changes that I can make into myself to make it better, to push through that rejection? And that is another core definition of being resilient. Okay. Resilience doesn't mean just avoiding something you don't like. Resilient means that you push through, push your limits, and trying to stay in that uncertain zone, that rejection zone, and see how can you make it better. Make it your data points. Don't make it a point where you label yourself as a failure or successful. These are your data points to just keep going through. Because you hit the next level, that is, I would say, the bottom of some other next level. So there is always a room for improvement. Who is defining the room for improvement? Those rejections. Those rejections are telling you that there is still a room for improvement, and you just go through it. That's what I always see being rejected. And when I'm telling you that I'm still going through this phase and it's so hard, pivoting from a small intimate shop to a boutique shop to a corporate level, it's a whole level of new world, and there are so many competitors out there. I don't want to compete myself. I just want to do something that I love to do, and I know that I'm good at it. I'm not competing with them. I'm not against anybody. I'm just doing what I need to do, and I can push my limits just by being resilient and just take these rejections as my data points.
Listening to you, and this is so incredible because now I've taken away, and for listeners, as we slowly start to wrap up this episode, I've already taken away many, many different to-dos here that you've shared with us. But, naming it to regulate it, that's one. And then this concept of expanding your window, this growing of your capacity of what it means to be resilient and collecting data instead of being discouraged. I almost am visualizing this idea, a bowling alley. And when you're looking at the lanes of a bowling alley, and when you're tossing the ball or whatever, I'm a really lousy bowler, so excuse my terminology, but, rolling the ball down the lane. And there you have those two on either side, those two dips. So if the ball goes into either one, it won't hit any of the pins. And resilience to me is almost like when the kids are bowling and they have the sort of the inflatable tubes that fill up those side gutters, and almost like you make your own inflatable tube so you don't end up in the gutter, because you're already sort of positioning yourself to bounce back. That, hey, I'm going to try to get my ball down and hit a pin. If I don't, I'll bounce. I'll bounce from either side to the next, but I'm still going to end up at the finish line. It just might get there in a really different way than I expected. And that concept of resilience, the way you're so beautifully framing it, is indulge in the adventure of this new era that you want to give to yourself, because there are no negatives in this. You're growing your capacity of life. And in that, and again, I'm not labeling at you as a mother only by any sense of the word, or just a wife. No, you are an incredibly, incredibly diverse human being, as we all are. But imagine what your children are seeing as an example in a mother. Of, I get back up every day. I try something new. Look at how I'm transitioning from this very structured life into, let me take those data points of a corporate world and birth something of my own and rethink how I want to contribute to society, and really rethink how you're contributing back into the corporate space.
Absolutely.
Again, I love that word alchemizing, of you're taking those data points and you're putting it back into the system in your own way. And what people around you are witnessing too, and we always talk about that on the Raw Onion, is the calmest person in the room is the regulator in the room. And when we can show up as our true selves to say, I am resilient. You might not agree with me, but I'm going to hold my head up high and continue forward because I've got this idea. I'm going to see it through. I'm going to take the punches and get back up again because this is the adventure of life. Other people see that, and whether they'll admit it or not, they're seeing an inspired example of what living a true life really is. And that is nothing but a positive role model in any capacity of anyone in your surroundings. You're presenting yourself as you is nothing less than brilliant. There is no negative to that. There is none.
Absolutely. I can't agree more. And I really want to share just a little example that while you were talking about, that people are seeing you, and what they're observing is not in your control. But, sometimes you really end up receiving sweet comments from other people that you've never imagined or never anticipated that, oh my God, they really noticed that. And apart from getting all these compliments from friends and family who really, really, appreciate my work, it's one of those things that they are of course, as old as we are, about the same age. So they really know what struggles could attach to being a mother and wife and, family and all that. So the other day, and it's one of those things that really gives the feeling of, okay, I'm doing something that really makes a difference. So my child, my 10-year-old, he came home the other day and he actually made a little computer on paper, and he was just trying to do something because, and they were just doing this, just friendly project with his friends. And he, brought that computer homemade out of paper. And, he was just showing me that, hey, mom, look, I just made this. And he put all the keyboard keys, and he named it after all the games that he plays. All these, I don't even remember the name of the games. And he's like, okay, one button, one game, next button, next game. How cool is that? I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. So what are you going to do? Just going to play games with that? And he goes, no, mama, I'm thinking of starting my own business and, do something like you. And I was like, wow, that's really sweet. And he just pointed me out. I'm like, no, mama, I'm not going to just play. I want to do a business like you. And, the way you just do it all the time. So I would just want to do it on, on the go. And I'm like, and that I kind of like listened to him like, oh, thank you. Yeah. And you're so sweet and this and that. But later I was thinking about like how observant they are. They might not say it. They might, of course, and they feel that mom is not giving them enough time. But at the same time, I am setting an example of them not just follow these norms, kid. Study and get a job and this and that. That's it. That's your life. That was the definition of being a successful mom. I felt like really I'm making a difference, not just being present for them and just do the, at the everyday chore. I made a difference. And now this is installed in his mind that he wants to be an entrepreneur and he wants to do business just like me. And it really, really touched my heart. And so
touches me.
Yeah. You don't know, by being yourself, just by being present there, you being you, honest, and you make difference in people's life. And trust me when I say this, it's not that I have been a perfect person. I have been an awful person as a mom, as a wife. I regulated myself like really hard by learn how to communicate. And I would say that's another thing. Maybe we can use this platform to really help people find a way to ask for help, because regulating your emotions is really helpful. But unless you know what the emotion is called, you won't be able to regulate it, right? So these postpartum phase, a brand new wedding phase, a brand new mom phase, brand new everything, it really brings down the territory of like how much you can push through. And if it gets overwhelmed, and when you get overwhelmed, you don't know how to process so many things. So you really have to like sit down and navigate through different phases of life. And communication is one of the very important factor that I learned very hard way in my life. And there's a whole lot of stories that how we learned that, how, we talk about it, but I really want to teach kids at the very young age. If you need help, ask for it. Don't push yourself too much to really lose your nervous system.
And there is no shame in asking.
There's no shame in asking.
There
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are multiple examples which I can tell you how people perceive you, even your own children, even your husband, like how they see you, their perspective really changes. You just have to push it and live it a little bit longer. And don't let these fear and these emotions of fear, guilt, shame take over your body, okay? And regulate it. I think
that is exactly the recipe that makes a resilient human being.
Absolutely.
You have literally gone beyond the book in describing how to build resilience in a real life. This isn't textbook. This is an example from a
real life. Yeah.
Real life, right? And also a beautiful example of how we, in a very honorable way, break the cycle and break the mold of that fear-based shame and reintroducing what resilience is in a family line, too. Hearing your incredible little boy say that he wants to be a business owner like you, would that have been a conversation that would have been had in your family 20, 30 years ago? I don't know.
I don't think so.
But, right, you don't think so. Or maybe it would have been a very different version of what a parent would sort of mirror for a child. Again, there are no wrongs, but how we keep the story going, we need to be adaptable, right?
Absolutely.
And that is the core of what resilience is. So as we wrap up today, Sarosh Iqbal, please tell us where we can find you. And I'll tell you right now, listeners, I'm going to be working with this woman when we launch our larger end retreats, because I'm not kidding. I just spent an hour perusing her website last night, and it is legitimately beautiful, beautiful, beautiful work. So Sarosh, where can we find you? Who are you marketing to, and who do you want to work with?
Thank you again, Stephanie. I do not have words again to really appreciate the kind words that you just use to describe my website. And again, just a little bit of a background, that I've had the website from the old version of my business, which is called Misha's Accessories. And I had a team for it. And there is nothing wrong about having a team and delegate things the way you want to. But at some point in your life, you're like, okay, things are not working the way you want them to be. How about you take control and really regulate things a little bit and start from lay a good foundation and you build on it. So for Prezio, my business name is now called Prezio. Who do I cater? I cater business to consumer and business to business. Yep. So I literally cover any and every aspect of gifting world. It starts from your own private event, your personal milestone, graduation, birthday, and what have you, all the way to the corporate level, all the way to a conference level where you want to have a personalized custom swag for your speakers, your audience, your consumers, your own customers, your employees. So it's like, there is no limit to it, because gifting is been there the day this world came into being, and it is always going to be there until the day it ends. So there is no limit to it. The limit is only in your mind. So, and I want to break all these limits, and I really want to make people feel like gifting cannot just be traditional, that you just give something just because you wanted to give. You can really make people feel how you feel about them, how you think about them. And it makes a huge impact of when you give someone something that is really personalized, that is really customized, and make them feel that, oh my God, you really thought of giving something. And it could be as simple as a book. It could be very simple thing, but the way you give it to them, that really the difference comes into being, right? So coming back to my website, it's called prezio.gifts, and it's work in progress, but I really am trying my best to really cater both consumer and corporate world, within one platform. And I have my LinkedIn there. You can find me on LinkedIn and reach out to me on LinkedIn. Really, it's a very simple process. You let us know what your thoughts are. We make a mock-up design and you confirm it, and we deal everything from end to end, and you really don't have to worry about anything. I want to make it very simple for the folks who really want to make someone feel good, but don't have to deal with all the tangents that's attached to it, right? Because it's all about time, and no one has enough time to really sit down and navigate through this busy life. So I want to make it simple for you guys, because I love you. I want to be present for you.
Literally and figuratively. And please, listeners, check it out, because, again, this is a beautiful, beautiful road and story of really looking at and living in corporate and now finding a way to give back in a creative way, in a very resilient way. So, Sarosh Iqbal, I just want to leave our listeners with this. You have been such a joy, a sincere joy to kick off this month. I would not have ever envisioned a better guest who lives resilience in such a pure and sincere way. And, at its core, guys, this is not about us being unshakable. It's about us being adaptable.
Absolutely.
And Sarosh has shared us here with really great hacks and tips today that we can walk away and really start to implement. And, our ability to update who we are on the inside. That's when life changes on the outside. You face loss without shutting down. You face uncertainty without freezing. You face the challenge without losing the sense of self. Honor yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. There is no shame in that.
No shame in that.
And for women, it's more layered, because we're not just navigating stress, we're navigating visibility, expectation, belonging, all at the same time. And that's sometimes the hardest part, and that in and of itself is the challenge. It's being seen while you're changing. And Sarosh is a beautiful example of that, and also how she is succeeding in that. So take her story as an incredible example. It has been an honor to chat with you today, Sarosh. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Likewise, it has been an honor to share my little journey. Hopefully, can make impact in other people's life. Those who don't have enough of resources to really think through it. And I just wanna, while we are on the go, it's not about, because I've always had this perspective in my mind that what people come after me and they say, oh, you got lucky by having these resources and having the support system in your life and this and that. I want to tell you that it's all a mind game. You can make opportunity by the very least, by the minimum thing that you have, and make it something, the basis or foundation of something more. So it's not about having the opportunity, it's about building that opportunity. So be on the end of making that or building that opportunity for you instead of waiting for the opportunity to come to you. I hope there is a very fine line between these two perspectives, but hope you understand the difference and really make the best of making the opportunities for you and build on that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We couldn't think of a better way to end. You have given everyone so much to think about. Thank you. And listeners out there of The Raw Onion, thank you for your time. Over and out. Until next week. Sarosh Iqbal, it has been a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you so much, Stephanie.